I'm Maria Elena Giassi, and this is Currents. 3 schools become one, and it's now a thriving Catholic academy.
We sat down and said, this is where we are, and how can we make education better?
Plus, we'll find out what a local hospital is doing to make Christmas brighter.
The hospital staff hand out either cookies or candy on Christmas Day. The senior staff tries to go in and visit people taking care of patients and the patients. Sure. It's a very special thing to work in a hospital on the holidays.
Sure. And on this World AIDS Day, getting medicine to those most in need. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. It was a big push yesterday in Washington for school choice, as leaders from the U.S. Bishops' Conference advocated for tuition tax credits. According to Catholic News Agency, Cardinal Donald Wuerl says Catholic schools have a profound effect on society as a whole through their faith perspective. Cardinal Wuerl says Catholic schools will help students to respond to the challenges they will face in life. The benefits of Catholic education are certainly evident here in the Diocese of Brooklyn. Salve Regina Academy in East New York is just one success story. What were once 3 schools with declining enrollment is now a single academy with more than 700 students. Salve Regina Academy is our School of the Week.
I was principal at St. Rita's for 34 years. The enrollment was going down, which led us to need to increase the tuition. And it's a spiral where the enrollment goes down, the tuition goes up, less people can come, the tuition goes up again. So about 2 years ago, we were talking about what was happening in the neighborhood and tried to move from just surviving to thriving.
We had to form an academy, but how the academy would be formed would be up to us. Whether it would be one academy with 3 different sites or 2 different sites.
And we came to the conclusion that it would be best to merge 3 schools into one academy to have a larger enrollment, less expensive tuition that people could afford, and go forward for the years ahead.
I was principal of St. Michael's for 32 years, very happily principal, except that the dollar sign came in and the shades came down.
I came from St. Sylvester. There was a rumor that the school was going to close, but we thought it was just a rumor. I didn't know if I was going to have a job. I panicked automatically because I had been there for so long and I was comfortable there.
It was nerve-wracking. When you're at a certain school for a certain amount of years, you develop that family sense with the faculty and the staff. Now you have new people in the mix.
The first decision that we made was that we would have a new uniform and they would not be coming to school in different uniforms and try to form one student body. And we've been emphasizing with them since the beginning, this is Salve Regina Academy and now Salve Regina students.
It was an adjustment. I had to learn names, I had to learn behaviors, I had to learn that I wasn't at St. Michael's School anymore. So I had to learn how to say Salve Regina Catholic Academy.
My biggest concern was whether we would be able to fit everyone in.
We walked into the auditorium and it was packed full of kids, and I had about 30 kids on my line and they all looked frightened.
We actually ended up opening other grades and having 3 on different grade levels, and we're using every room available. We've got all the different services that we wanted. We even have services that we didn't have in other schools that we were able to accommodate here.
So we have a number of programs, like our students never had a robotics club, and St. Michael's had robotics, and now they're getting interested in that type of thing.
The combining of the 3 schools has availed us to technology that we were not privy to before. We are competing against TV and videos and everything else that is out there, and now I can bring the whole world into room 303.
We have resource rooms who have special classes in reading and math, ESL and things like that. We've been able to multiply the availability of those programs so that more children are being serviced. It was our idea. It wasn't something imposed by the diocese. The diocese didn't come and close schools. We sat down and said, this is where we are, and how can we make education better?
So it's a concerted effort on everybody's part to really try and just become a family.
Students adjust very quickly to any situation that you put them in.
I know there was a fear of maybe cliques forming, but they're all getting along great.
They have been able to socialize very well.
And nobody really had the this is mine and what's yours.
Each child has more possibilities for friendship. Each grade has more children on its level.
It has been a success story.
We were 3 struggling schools. We're now 1 strong school with over 730 students, and we're actually the largest school in the Brooklyn and Queens diocese.
Out of the closing, out of something that was disconcerting, out of that came something very positive.
It doesn't feel like we just got here and we're still getting used to it. It's flowing.
What I wanted was for us, after 6 months, to sit around and say, gee, this is so good, we should have done this years ago. That we actually formed something that we could have done years ago and would have been better even then. And I feel that we're there. We're getting there where we sit around and say, this is so good, we should have done this a long time ago.
And Salve Regina is one of 3 academies to open in the Diocese of Brooklyn this September. The other 2, St. Catherine of Genoa, St. Therese of Lisieux in Flatbush, and St. Elizabeth in South Ozone Park. Stay tuned. There's more currents ahead. A Florida bishop takes a stand against new healthcare regulations. We'll have that story and the rest of the day's headlines next. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Maria Elena Giassi. Coming up later, how religious groups are coming together to fight AIDS. But first, let's have a look at the day's headlines. The Senate passed a measure today that ensures military chaplains will not be forced to perform same-sex marriages. According to the Army Times, the measure allows chaplains to opt out of performing marriages if doing so violates their conscience or moral principles. The amendment's main sponsor, Senator Roger Wicker of Mississippi, says protections for military chaplains should be guaranteed in any policy changes implemented. The amendment is considered more moderate than the House version, which actually prohibits chaplains from performing same-sex weddings. From Florida, the Bishop of St. Petersburg made a surprise announcement yesterday at Mass, saying the diocese would no longer provide health insurance for its employees unless the federal health care law is changed. According to the St. Petersburg Times, Bishop Robert Lynch made this statement at yesterday's Red Mass for lawyers and judges. Bishop Lynch said the St. Petersburg Diocese would give employees cash to buy insurance on their own, rather than providing health insurance. Bishop Lynch did not specify what changes are needed. The Church has been speaking out against a new mandate requiring most private health plans to cover contraception without copayment, with only narrow exceptions. In Kentucky, a bishop there says there should be no holding hands at Mass. In a letter to Catholics ahead of the introduction of the new Mass translation, Covington Bishop Roger Foys says the extending of hands during the Our Father is reserved only for the priest, and that no one else should extend their hands or hold hands. The practice of lay people holding hands during the Our Father is not uncommon at Masses across the U.S. Bishop Foy's letter also included other guidelines, including the role of the choir at Mass and the necessity of silence in church both before and after Mass. And the number of Masses could become fewer and fewer in the Archdiocese of Detroit after a panel recommended the closing or merger of 48 parishes there. The Detroit Free Press reports the proposals, which are tentative, would affect churches in the city of Detroit and its suburbs. If enacted, the plans would result in 1 in 5 parishes across the diocese closing. The church there says the changes are needed because of fewer priests, changing demographics, and financial constraints. Meanwhile, the American Civil Liberties Union is launching a campaign against Apple over the latest iPhone. The ACLU is complaining that the phone's Siri digital assistant software does not allow people to find abortion clinics. The group is encouraging people to contact Apple to change that. An Apple spokesperson says the omissions are not intentional and that the software is still in beta form. Turning now to Ireland, where the country's health minister will establish a panel to discuss the issue of abortion, which is illegal in Ireland except in limited circumstances. The news comes after a European court ruled last December that Ireland had failed to implement existing rights to abortion in cases where a mother's life is at risk. The panel will be formed by the end of the year and will have 6 months to deliver a report to the government. And the Vatican is condemning the participation of an excommunicated bishop in the ordination of another bishop in China. The Holy See welcomes the ordination, which was done with the Vatican's approval, but the Vatican spokesman says that having the excommunicated bishop take part in the ceremony causes disagreement and confusion among the faithful. And the Vatican has given its okay to the Diocese of Orange, California, purchasing Crystal Cathedral. The diocese purchases the iconic structure for more than $57 million, with plans to make it the new cathedral building. The building, which was founded by Reverend Robert Schuller of the Reformed Church of America, is best known as the home of Reverend Schuller's Hour of Power television broadcasts. And people in one Iowa town will have to go one less place for their Christmas trees. Kira Mashek tells us why.
This is typically the most wonderful time of year for Pine Acres Christmas Tree Farm near New Hampton.
Just being able to see the people enjoy the season and have fun coming out and picking out their trees, and the little kids running around, and it's a busy place out here, and it's fun to watch everybody.
But this year, there's no holiday cheer to spread. Just after Pine Acres closed for the season last year, deer took on the role of Christmas Grinches, nibbling up nearly the entire farm.
They just sort of took over and bedded down in here. We have about 8 acres here of trees. We figure between 10 and 12,000 trees that we've lost, which is probably between $75,000 and $80,000.
And unfortunately for this tree farmer, no kind of crop insurance is available to help cover the loss. She's just hoping now that the damage is done and the farm's being opened up to some hunters, deer won't be back here anytime soon.
We're probably going to end up putting a big fence around, not the whole farm, but around the area that we have trees planted in and stuff, so that we can keep the deer out, and then we'll be able to put gates in and stuff and open it up at Christmas time.
That story from Kira Mashek. The Reverend Billy Graham was reportedly in good spirits after being admitted to a North Carolina hospital late yesterday for treatment of his lungs. In a statement, the hospital says Graham was alert, smiling, and waving at hospital staff when he was admitted last night. The Billy Graham Evangelistic Association says the 93-year-old evangelist was being tested for possible pneumonia. And Pope Benedict was said to have been amused after learning he was being sued for not wearing his seatbelt in the Pope-mobile. A German man filed a complaint against the Pope for not buckling up during his trip to Germany back in September. According to the lawyer in the case, the man believes the Pope should be fined more than $3,300, the maximum amount for a repeat seatbelt offender. The Vatican spokesman says the complaint continues to provoke curiosity and smiles of amusement, beginning with the Pope himself. Stay tuned, there's more currents ahead. Coming up, a Brooklyn hospital helps local churches with a celebration of light.
When you think about caring for the sick, no matter who they are, you really have to think about trying to take care of people's souls. You know, to me, that leads us to nativity scenes at Christmas time.
Welcome back. This Christmas will be a lot brighter around Brooklyn, thanks to the generosity of a local hospital. For the 16th straight year, Maimonides Medical Center is sponsoring a celebration of light. The hospital donates $1,000 each to churches across the borough, with the money then used to light church buildings or nativity scenes. Monsignor David Casado, the pastor of St. Athanasius Church in Bensonhurst and a member of Maimonides' board of directors, told the tablet that with so many issues with the economy, this is a little light in the darkness. Earlier today, Monsignor Casado and Maimonides President and CEO Pamela Breyer stopped by our studio and spoke with our news director, Ed Wilkinson.
Monsignor and Pam, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Pam, this has been 16 years of Maimonides helping out Catholic parishes in the area, in Brooklyn there. How does a hospital that's run in the Jewish tradition wind up helping Catholic churches at Christmas time?
Well, I think we like to think that we are responsive to and take care of people of all faiths. not just the Jewish faith. And many of our patients are Catholic, and many of our staff are Catholic. So this is really not a stretch. And when you think about caring for the sick, no matter who they are, you really have to think about trying to take care of people's souls and the souls of their families and loved ones, as well as the patients. And you know, to me, that leads us to nativity scenes at Christmas time. It just does.
And I know you've been at some of the Christmas tree lightings.
I love those
You've
Christmas.
Seen this,
oh,
right?
They're so much fun. I love them, and my husband comes with me, and they're just great.
Yeah.
I was just looking at some pictures the other day of some of the earlier ones at your church, I think, Monsignor. Yeah.
Well, Monsignor, what does this mean to the parish?
Well, I mean, first of all, Ed, it's a time of the year where, you know, people are very generous and the spirit of giving. And Maimonides has been part of that spirit of giving. You imagine how many parishes, I think there's 28 parishes that are involved in this whole spirit of giving.
And that's $1,000 a parish, right?
Yes.
Add that up.
That's a lot of money.
I got a very good mathematical mind. It's $28,000. And the hospital had a wonderful reception, and we had a real nice celebration of the beginning of it. I'm on the board of trustees of the hospital, and it's a fascinating place to be on the board of trustees. You talk about diversity, and you talk about Brooklyn, and how our diocese is really so diverse, and you look at what comes into Maimonides. There are people from all over the world, and Maimonides reaches out. I got to tell you, Doug Jablon, along with Pam, does a tremendous job of reaching out to the different communities, and we're blessed, you know, with our relationship with Maimonides as a Catholic community in Brooklyn.
And that's just how we feel about our relationship with the diocese, that we are blessed. It's a privilege to be able to give this small amount. And it's just so heartening. I can't tell you.
It's really it's a holistic approach.
Very much.
Maimonides takes care of people's bodies, but their spirits also, right?
We hope. That's the idea.
Sure.
And so next year, if we're fortunate enough to be invited back for this show, I think we should film at the next reception and party that we give for all the parents. Yes, yes, it's very festive.
That's always a fun time too, right?
Oh, it's great. It's great. There's lunch provided, and I got to tell you something. Everybody shows up to get a check for $1,000.
Sure. Tell us what it's going to be like at St. Athanasius.
Well, St. Athanasius, we're lighting on December 10th, right after the 5:30 Mass. And we have a very large nativity scene on the corner of Bay Parkway and 61st Street. And we have approximately 100 trees all around the parish grounds. And we'll light them hopefully simultaneously. And then we have one very, very large tree near the rectory. And we light that separately. It's really a very festive night. Hundreds of people come out, whether it be cold or whatever, and we have a wonderful turnout. And I think at the end, I'm not sure, but I think Santa Claus arrives at the end.
All right.
And this all started with just one little request, I understand.
This started with one little request in 2 or 3 little parishes, and it has grown. And even though every year I say, okay, no more, that's it, that's enough, somehow there always seems to be room for just one more.
People tell me this is really one of your favorite projects.
I love this project. I just love it. And you know what? The staff love it. My staff love it. It's just, as I said, it's a privilege to be able to do something uplifting.
Yeah. Monsignor, what's it like at visitation? You've seen that, or have?
I mean, it's very similar. I mean, I've been there once, I think, really for the lighting of the whole experience. But I think it really started at visitation. Visitation was the first place.
Right.
Yes, yes, it was.
Brian Long and John DeLosa got involved, Marty Golden, Larry Morrish, and then they approached the hospital to help, and that's how it all came together.
Right. Right.
Yeah, those are the big names. So
and they're still there, eating lunch.
What does the hospital do special at Christmas time? Does it do anything
special? The hospital has Christmas decorations. The hospital staff hand out either cookies or candy on Christmas Day. The senior staff tries to go in and visit people taking care of patients and the patients, as we do on Thanksgiving. It's nice to do. It's a very special thing to work in a hospital on the holidays.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Very special.
Special time. And Monsignor, what's going to happen at the parish? Anything special going on at Christmas
time? We'll see. We're not totally there yet. I'm sure there'll be a couple of surprises around.
Do you still have the display downstairs in the lower church?
Yes, we have the Presepio in the lower church, the Italian tradition. On the Sunday this year, because of the way Christmas falls, on the Sunday, the Epiphany, we're having the animals of the Nativity, the live animals, and the kind of a petting zoo, and the kids can come in and pet the animals, and to kind of get the experience of how Jesus was born among the in the stable among the animals.
Well, it's a wonderful time of the year, and it's made even brighter by the gift from Maimonides every year. So thank you, Pam, and thank you, Monsignor, for being with us. And
it's always a pleasure, Ed.
It certainly is. Thanks, Ed.
Stay tuned. There's more currents ahead. When we return, religious groups come together to fight AIDS. Finally, today is World AIDS Day, when we offer support to people living with the deadly disease, as well as families of those who have died from it. Rome Reports has more on efforts to keep people informed.
Every December 1st, the world recognizes World AIDS Day. It's meant as a way for people to unite in solidarity and offer support to those suffering from the disease. World AIDS Day became the first ever global health day when it was created in 1988. Religious groups like the Ecumenical Advocacy Alliance are one of the many agencies on the front line fighting this disease. They have started an online petition called Together We Must Do More, in which participants commit their time and energy to helping those suffering from AIDS. It's estimated that over 33 million people are living with HIV across the world, most of whom are concentrated in sub-Saharan Africa. This number has risen dramatically over the years, but many say this is thanks to advancement in medicine that allows those infected to live much longer. However, between 1981 and 2007, more than 25 million people have died from the virus, making it one of the most destructive pandemics in history.
And AIDS is a disease that hits close to home here in Brooklyn. According to the most recent data, close to 27,000 people in the borough are living with AIDS. But in other parts of the world, the disease is even more prevalent. CNN's Robin Curnow in Lesotho has the story.
Inside a remote clinic, a mother and child have come for a consultation. Mabusang's daughter is sick with HIV and she will need to begin treatment. It shook me, she tells us. I looked at my daughter. She's so young. She's still too young. Here in Lesotho, nearly every one of its 2 million people is personally affected by HIV/AIDS. Mabusang brought her daughter here because it was the closest clinic to their village, a 1.5-hour journey through steep, rocky terrain. But in this seemingly desperate situation, there is hope. Hope provided by a solitary horseman. More than 2 hours away, down a mountain pass, Potso Sioto saddles his pony. A 30-minute ride from his home, and Potso makes his first stop. A Red Cross clinic by a main road, where he picks up a supply of life-saving drugs. From there, it's a grueling ride up the mountain to the rural clinic where Mabusang and other patients await drugs and test results.
Ponies first, they are part of life of people here. They use ponies anyway in the mountains. When it's in winter, there is no other mean of transport. You have to use only ponies.
Uhendwa says it's the buy-in from the horse riders like Potso who make the program a success.
If you don't study how to bring the message, you shock people. And once you shock people, as in Lesotho, we are still traditionalists. We are still based a lot on tradition. When you shock people, you shock the traditional tenant of the power. The message cannot pass.
So he rides up the same stretch of mountain several times a week, making sure the clinic storeroom is stocked full of ARVs, replacing patients' initial fears with hope. I told my daughter, we are living with HIV, you and I. I live with it, you can live with it. We'll be okay.
That report from CNN's Robin Curnow. And AIDS remembrances were held around the world today, including here in the Diocese of Brooklyn. In the days leading up to World AIDS Day, St. Augustine Church in Park Slope posted red ribbons like this one on their fence with the names of those who have died from the disease. The names are all being read tonight at a special service at St. Augustine's. We are also covering a separate World AIDS Day service at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church in Williamsburg. We'll have a report on that tomorrow night. Until then, be sure to visit us online at currentsny.net. You can also catch up with us on Facebook and Twitter. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Maria Elena Giassi. Thank you for watching and have a great night.